You're on.
We're on. We are rocking and rolling, and we always begin everything at Center for Spiritual Living with a spiritual mind treatment, so I invite you to take a deep breath. And you can sneeze it if you want to. And I invite you to let go of any and all distractions on the outer and turn to the inner, the place of creation, the place of connection, the place of knowing. And so as we are focused within, we open up our awareness to that idea that says there is one thing and one thing only going on in this universe and beyond. It is light, it is love, it is joy, it is life, it is the absolute, it is that which we are. I know that we are created out of that one thing, that oneness, because there's nothing other than the one, and so we are made out of divine substance. We are spirit made manifest as us. We are a point of spirit, focused in time and space, but so much more. And so we open up our awareness to the idea that we have a body, but we're not our bodies. We have a mind, but we're not our minds. We have emotions, but we are not our emotions. We have experiences, but we are not our experiences. We are one with all. We are greater than anything we can conceive. And since we are created out of divine substance, we know that that is what we are. So we claim for ourselves right here and right now a class that is enlightening, a class that is exciting and uplifting. We claim for ourselves right now a body that is in absolute vibrant health, more than enough money than we know what to do with, relationships that are honest and loving and supportive, and everything that we focus upon comes into form with love and joy and success. That's our true nature. And then we move into gratitude, how great it is to be us, how great it is to be spirit as us, how great it is to be in this class this evening with such wonderful people, learning about such wonderful things. And then we let it go, knowing that we have done our work on the inside. And the only thing that can happen is that it shows up on the outside. So we turn it over, knowing that we're done, as together we say, and so it is. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Wonderful.
Thank you for the open house.
Oh, you're welcome. And this is the second open house in the back table. So please eat the food so that we don't have to have a third open house. This is our second to the last night of class. Next week is our last night. And those of you who have been in the class the whole time, I would like you to think about what you have learned and how you have changed over these last 4 months, almost 4 months. Those of you who have not been in the class for the entire time, I would like you to think back to when you first started coming into the class and think about what you've learned and how you've changed. It's important to me that we go through some kind of a completion process. As a culture, we're really good at beginning things, and we're not so good at ending. Hence that song, slip out the back, Jack, make a new plan, stand. We're really good at just running and not saying, I'm completing this, this is where I am. So I like to practice that whenever possible. I have the recordings recorded and the first 5 lessons edited, and it is my intention to have those for you next week. If anyone is an audio whiz and can take a WAV, which is a standard Windows audio file, and turn it into an MP3 compressed file, I would like to speak to you. I keep losing files between my 2 computers. The program that I'm using is a 2004 program because I know how to edit and I know how to take the stumbles out of my talking and all of that. But because it's a 2004 computer, my new laptop with the DVD drive, it doesn't recognize the DVD player as anything at all. It says you cannot burn a CD because you don't have a CD burner. So then I put it on a stick and take it downstairs to where that program is also, and it does have a recognizable CD player because it's a much older Windows version, and sometimes they get lost on the stairwell. So by the time I put them in the other computer, it's either a corrupt file, a non-existent file, or something like that. So if anybody knows about that stuff, I've got them. Do you know about that?
Yeah, no problem.
Well, thank you. I've got most of them on a 32 gigabyte stick, and my upstairs computer reads it, but can't burn it. And the downstairs computer doesn't read it, and I sent them to Devon, and Devon said when she opened it, there was nothing there on her computers.
Wow.
So that's just out of my realm,
Okay.
but
We'll figure it out.
good, because I really want to have those for everybody next week. We'll have CDs for about a third of the group, and sticks, flash drives for the rest of the group. It is about 10 hours of recording, 10 hours of audio, so we're going to compress the heck out of that into MP3 files and try to get it at a reasonable thing. Of the people who want CDs, and this is just a realm I'm not familiar with, can you have MP3 files on a CD? Does that work?
Yeah.
Because then I don't have to give you, 8 CDs. Maybe we can fit it all on one CD. I know you can't put it in one of those little boom boxes for the most part and have it play. Yes, Judith?
You have to have the right size, though, and you probably know this.
No, I don't know anything.
In terms of how much of it will fit on the CD. DVDs are different than CDs, and
I just want people who want to be able to put it in their car to be able to put it in their car. But I don't think it has to be a huge file for that to happen unless you have a really, really old car. Yeah. So good. So that's where I am. And do we have any questions about last week's class? Great. This week we are talking about psychic phenomena, and I want you to know that this is one of the big reasons that the textbook got edited to begin with, because Ernest loved psychic stuff. And if you've read this chapter, oh my God, he says he sat in a room at one time and a cup levitated out of the kitchen and came into the room he was sitting in, tipped up to where he could drink some of it, and then it went back into the kitchen while nobody touched it. He loved this stuff. He loved table tipping and tapping and all kinds of psychic stuff. And when we went from 1926, actually I think the first publishing of the textbook was by his mother, good old mom, in 1924, so he must have written this 1922-23. When we went from that to the 1937 revised edition, somebody didn't think that it was such a good idea for Ernest to be all about the psychic world. And they took a lot of that stuff out. But what Ernest said was, if you're going to study the mind, then you need to study all of it, not just some of it. And he talks about how this is not an exhaustive treatise on psychism. It's been studied and proven, and he just wants to explain it to people so that they know what that's about. And so we start looking at psychic stuff, and he's got some pretty strong opinions about the psychic world. He says, anybody who goes into a trance is not good, because then you're not being aware and something is taking over you, and that's not good. So much for Esther Hicks, I guess. And he talks about the difference between the mystic and the psychic, and we talked about mysticism last week with the lesson on the perfect whole. And he has a very high regard for mystics and not so much for psychics, but he really likes psychic stuff. And he cautions us not to give our power away to anybody else, that no one knows our future but ourselves, and that Our destiny is not in the stars. The stars don't rule us. Do you have a question, Michaela?
What if you don't know your destiny yet?
That's all right, just hang out here and you'll get it. So that our destiny is our own and not to give our power away, that our power is not in the stars, and all of that, you know, I can go with, but I've seen also a lot of information that comes into me that has been very valid, and so I'm not one that says none of that is real, because I think that who we are is so complex and intricate that sure, certain energies are at a certain point and we decide to incarnate and we choose that second and we choose that place and we choose those parents, and everything is orchestrated at that exact second for us to show up in time and space. And I think it's kind of limiting to say none of that matters, because it does matter. You know, John and I are both Virgos, and if you were at our house yesterday, you can see that. I think John's a little bit more of a Virgo than me. Because every can in the pantry is turned, so the label, and in the refrigerator too, so that the labels are facing forward. And there's that sense of order that some would attribute to the fact that he's under an astrological sign called Virgo. I'm a Virgo, but I've got a lot of Leo cusp, and that's why I'm really practicing non-attachment with my hair. And so what I don't want to do is I don't want to read this lesson and go, oh, this is psychic stuff is just a bunch of BS, because Ernest loved it. So what did he love about that? He loved that there was information that you could tap into beyond the time-space continuum, and that information was real. Whether or not it was spot on for you, whether or not someone put their Madame Tarot robe on and was going to tell you when you were going to meet your true love or whatever, there's definitely information floating around beyond our five senses and beyond our ability to grasp that, usually at will. And some of that information can come from psychic stuff, and some can come in the realm of psychism that Ernest didn't put as psychic phenomenon, but I would, because it's information that comes from beyond time and space. I would say all intuition is in the psychic realm. Really. That when you get intuition, where did that come from? When you have a gut knowing, when you are compelled to call someone and check in. I can't tell you the number of times I've called people at this center and said, I don't know why, I just felt like I wanted to call. How you doing? And they would go, oh God, you have no idea how important this phone call at this second is to me. That's trusting my intuition. Whenever I've worked with people who have had supposed calamities happen to them, and they've gotten far enough away from it that they can be a little bit honest, and I say, really? You had no sense that this was going to turn south? You had no sense that you shouldn't do that? They go, oh yeah, I knew I shouldn't have done that. Well, that puts us in a position of being empowered instead of that something can happen to us and we don't have any knowledge or say about it. One of the things that happened to me relatively recently is I was standing on my upper balcony over at my house, and I looked over here, and we had the sanctuary, and we had this building, and that was it. We didn't own the property next door to us. Our property line was about 5 or 10 feet off this wall, probably 5, because we had built into the hill as much as we could. And I just stood there, and I saw that third building. I saw it as clear as day. And I called John and I said, I didn't know we were supposed to build 3 of them. Now, having built the first 2, we felt really complete. That we were done building. And I saw the third building. It looked exactly like this one, only it was a little bit farther away. And sure enough, that third building is there. So some people might say, well, was that a psychic vision or a visual intuition that you got, or did you build that because you had that sense that you were supposed to build it? And I don't know whether I can differentiate between what comes first.
That's like a chicken and the egg.
Right, but I know that I saw that as clear as day. I didn't ask for it, the same way I knew that we were supposed to have water on this property, and I'm not sure why now, but I knew we would look at property and I would say, I don't know why, but it doesn't have any water. We're supposed to have water. We're gonna be on the water. There's water on this property. And so sure enough, here we are with the property with water. And we didn't buy this property, it was given to us. It's not like I picked from a number of things that we were going to purchase. It just fell into place, and Rick and Katia Krebs gave us land to build the center on, which is what we used for a down payment so that we could get a construction loan so that we could build a center. And it had water on it. So I'm very interested in what your experiences are, and I know that sometimes we get people at this center who have had psychic experiences and they have had to hide them. And they have been told that they weren't okay having them. We had a couple that, I'm not sure why they left, but they were very involved, and he had said that in the Catholic Church, he never could tell anybody that he saw angels and he saw auras and things like that. So I could go over everything Ernest has said, but frankly I find this the most boring lesson of the entire book, because I don't need a dictionary of every psychic phenomenon and what it means. I just don't need that. He has got some cool stuff in it, but I'm much more interested in where you are, and if you've had experiences that would be either termed psychic or precognition, things like that. Have you known things were going to happen before they happened?
Yes.
Have you seen things before they happened? Have you had that experience? And what I want you to know is that if you have had to hide that in your life, that this is a safe place for you to be, because we all believe in that. We deal in the realm of mind. We deal in the realm that is outside of time and space. We create from outside of time and space. So this whole realm of psychic phenomena or intuition or whatever you want to call it is outside of the realm of time and space. It's right where we are. Have you had psychic phenomena, Michaela? Tell us.
I used to think when I was with my real parents, I was really scared and I wanted to almost, it's like very scared when you feel those fear firing, and it's like I knew that there was going to be some water going to be poured on it. That's like the healing.
So sweet. Thank you. Great. Who else? Shirley?
One day Barbara Waterhouse called me and I'd just been fired. And you never did tell me why you called, but I said,
I didn't know why I was calling.
I said, I know I'm no longer employed, and you said, hallelujah.
Yeah.
But you never did tell me why you called.
I
Just out
didn't
of the blue.
Yeah. Wonderful. Becca?
I used to work at a outpatient department at a hospital up in Cleveland, and there was a patient in her 70s who was having a blood gas drawn, which is drawn from your wrist, and it can be extremely painful when they do that. And she was in a lot of pain while they were doing it, and I put my hands on her shoulders, and I just closed my eyes, just trying to calm her and keep her still. And once they were done, she turned around and she said, I don't know what you did, but the minute you touched me, I stopped feeling any pain.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Great. Judith and then Robert.
Well, this has been going on for a while, but when I first moved here, I moved into this tiny little place, and Deb and Mary owned some duplexes down below me, and I knew I couldn't live there because they owned them, and I didn't want to, jeopardize our friendship. You never know. And I had seen the inside of them, and I was like, God, I want to live there. And it took me, but like I mentioned to you the other day, it took about a year to manifest, but I just kind of knew that I'd be there. You know, hardwood floors, and it was everything I'd been looking for, and it was like I put it out there, and I just looked at that place, I said, yeah, this is gonna be mine. I'm gonna be here someday, and it's gonna be okay. And it's happening, and it's all happening.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Robert?
I think it's happened to an experience that I had when I was 16. I had appendicitis, was rushed to the hospital. Speak louder. Rushed to the hospital, and I was in pain, but I finally fell asleep. I guess they gave me a sedative. And when I woke up, it was dark, and there was a nurse sitting beside me, and she reached over and took my hand. And I felt all this energy rush up my body, and I fell back asleep. And when I woke up in the morning, I said, you can go now. You don't have appendicitis anymore.
Wow.
Oh, yes, I described the nurse to the staff, and they said, we don't have anybody to describe.
That's your angel nurse. Who else? Jane?
I've had quite a number of them, these experiences involving Rotary. But when Leon and I moved here to Asheville, we couldn't find any place to live, and so we had a realtor, and he took us to all these places, and nothing was within our, you know, we couldn't, well, anyway, and nothing worked out. Yet at the same time, Leon said, well, Jane, what kind of house do you want? Or I've never lived in a house before. I just lived in apartments. So I said, well, you know, I'd like a water somewhere, you know, running water, and I'd like to have neighbors, but not too close. I also want to live in the country. And so Leon just looked at me frowning, and it was impossible. And then actually we didn't find a place, and then the last day the realtor came and said, uh-oh, you know, something has come up on the computer that I need to look at. You want to come out with me? And we did. And there it was. I mean, there's where I still live. There's a stream. We have neighbors on one side and no neighbors on the other side. So it's like we're in the country. And it was just about everything that I had, even though I'd said all these contradictory things, they all turned out, and this property was really weird. So
You are more powerful than you know, Jane.
I'll tell you, and then I'll tell you a real quick one.
I'm gonna get the last word.
I never thought much about spirit and stuff. I, didn't believe in anything at all. And when my husband died, of all things, here he was, an old, he's in his 80s and just dying away and lying in bed, and his hair was just scraggly and thin, and really, I smelled something like smoke or something, I don't know, but I was with him, and so I thought, oh, he doesn't look comfortable, so I went on the other side of his bed to make him comfortable, and when I got over on the other side, I looked again, and his face had changed into the face of a young man. I mean, I saw that. I was just really stunned. And I thought, oh, gee, I'm having a hallucination or something. And then I looked, and his hair was blonde and just perfectly combed. And he was just lying there. And he looked like that for, a minute or two, and then he changed back. But it was just an extremely odd thing, I would say. So,
Very cool, very, very cool, Jane. I'm coming to you, Sherry. Has anyone had the experience that you smell a certain thing at times? Rocky Bear used to say it was our spirit guides, and they would come with a certain smell. And so, pardon me? So sometimes I would smell something and know that something was going on because that smell wasn't there before. Sure.
So I had decided I was going to make a coconut cake. So I was looking, I went to Amazing Savings, which was in, the one in Biltmore, and so if you've been there, you know it's kind of rough. But I was looking for a can of cream of coconut. And so I went in and, you know, things are just sort of, they're not perfectly placed in the store. So I was checking up and down the aisles, up and down. Oh, first of all, I had gone in and I had gone to the wall that had all the juices on it. And it was stacked, placed perfectly, a wall of different kinds of juices. And I had taken a case of acai berry juice off and put it in my cart. So I continued to go up and down the aisles, checking everything to see if I could find a can of cream of coconut. Checked the old store, went to the baking section, went to the register and said, do you ever have cream of coconut? Yes, but it's very rare. If it comes at all, people buy it right away. If it's not there, we don't have any. And so I said, okay, fine. And I got in the line and I thought, you know what? I don't think I want this acai berry juice. So I went back to the first wall to place my acai berry juice back in the hole that I got it from. And there in the hole was one lone can of coconut. And I really think it just kind of lapsed in like
It did.
It wasn't there.
Wonderful. Charles Joseph, master clothing maker.
So in '94, my business, not my business specifically, but my business and the businesses around in my complex were set fire to. Don't know why or by who. As it happens, I was in the building when it happened, and I had actually fallen asleep because I was working really late. It was in the middle of the night, and I woke up to the alarm and I saw the flames. Anyway, it was very scary, and I was very panicky, and I wanted to call my parents in case they saw it on the news, but that was before the advent of cell phones. So a lot was taking place, and it was 2, 3 in the morning when I woke up and saw the flames. Anyway, I called my mother finally, called my parents. Actually, my dad answered, and my mother was, tell me what's wrong, right away. And I told them, what had happened. And she said she had woken up at the same time that I had woken up, because I told her, when it happened. She said she had woken up and she knew that there was something wrong with one of her children, but she didn't know which one or what. So she was just praying until she got a phone call.
Well, I think this is fascinating. I just think it's so fascinating, and I think that we're a place where these kinds of people come, and that's us.
I have many experiences of calling family members and friends at just the appropriate time to connect with them when some life-altering event has happened. I manifested
Just go ahead and talk.
Okay. I manifested a house that my best friend and I rented. We were talking about it in a within circle and created this house, even with the tree house out back. And when I was in the 10th grade, my pawpaw died, and he came to visit me in algebra class. It was just, I was a really good student. I, really paid attention, and that day I could not focus for the life of me. And all I could think of was my pawpaw. And granted, I had just gone to see him in the hospital, but, when I came home that evening, my dad told me that he had died. And I knew it was visitation.
Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful. Sarah.
I have many experiences, but one that's consistent is that when people who are close to me die, I know about it beforehand. And I also had the same experience with my grandfather. And I was actually listening to a song that talks about transition, and I was like, I think my grandfather's experiencing this right now. And I was 18, I had no idea what that meant, but 20 minutes later, the hospital called, and he had passed. And I had the same experience with my grandmother, although my grandmother is still alive and lives in a nursing home, but I kept having that same experience that I'd had with him and some other family members, so I knew what it was. I knew this person's dying. And I kept calling my mom and saying, is she okay? Please check on her. And she was like, she's fine, she's fine. But what happened was, what no one knew at the time is that she was suffering from mini strokes.
Yes.
And now, although she's alive, she has dementia and doesn't know who I am. So I feel like those moments were us separating in this realm, and you know, she doesn't know who I am now. We were very close. So she's still funny and witty and fairly healthy, but she has, you know, I just felt like I felt her leaving. So.
Thank you.
What is your name?
My name's Eric.
Hi, Eric.
I'm brand new, I just walked in, and I didn't know if I was gonna stay here tonight, but the first words I heard were psychic stuff. It's coming up in my life, and I'm sort of exploring this. When I was 23, I was hospitalized psychiatrically for what they called a mental illness or something, but it was a spiritual emergence. Stanislav Grof does work around this stuff, non-ordinary states of consciousness. And I think the psych wards are filled with people with just gifts. And so for me, it's been this journey of believing in what has been going on. It's an evolving thing of whatever I'm channeling or whenever I go into this state, things kind of happen, and a lot of synchronicities and stuff like this. So I'm really grateful for you folks to be being here and for me to be able to be here as I sort of unwind my journey. And I don't know what it is. I don't have a name for it.
We're your peeps, Eric.
Yeah, I know. I mean, this world is full of peeps, and when we're open and expressive and can have a safe place to talk about it, I think we've all got our peeps inside of us peeping out and be here. So thanks.
Excellent, excellent. Yay, thank you. Who else? Why do we talk about, oh, Roxanne.
Different kind of story.
Go ahead.
Long time ago, when I was still living in Baltimore, and I had gotten a divorce in Denver and had moved back to Baltimore for a lot of reasons. The one of my pets that I was able to keep was a little parakeet that I'd had that was 11 years old at that time. And everything was in turmoil, but Petey was with me the whole time. And we got to Baltimore, and he started failing. And actually, I took him to a bird guy to watch him while I had to travel. And when I came back, walked in the store, and I said, well, where's my bird? And he said, oh, he died, you know, just flippantly. And I was devastated. So I took his little body home, and I was crying the whole time. And I found, of course, just happened to find a little jewelry box, perfect little parakeet coffin size, and I put him in. And then I found his favorite little ball that he always had played with. The parakeets have those little balls with bells in them, you know, that you can see through. And it just fit in there, so I put it in. And I was living in an apartment complex with a stream through it. And I went out by the stream, and I buried him right by the stream. And then during the night, didn't even hear it, a huge rainstorm hit. I got up the next morning, and I looked out, and there had been a flood. And the stream had gone way up over its banks. I went out, there was logs and wood and everything. And I went out to the hole where I had buried him. And the hole was, of course, dug out, but it was still there, and the little coffin was gone, and he was gone. And the ball was sitting on the edge of the hole.
Ooh.
Oh. Waiting for me.
Very cool, very cool. I love things that are impossible.
I still have it in my jewelry box.
B.
It's kind of strange. It's only happened, I'm going to say, a handful of times. But I'll be in a room in a meeting. This happened when I was working. And this sense that I knew every single person, but it was so clear that I knew them before, whatever that meant. And it was like it was different light and everything. It was just, I would just stop. I didn't know at that time what it was, but it had all happened before.
Wonderful.
I've seen rain, people, Native American prayers, and rain came on the driest day, and it came just where we were, and not a half a block away where everybody else was, and they thought we got caught under sprinklers, and we were there. And another thing, a seance that started with table tipping, that it was huge tables. They were like raw edge wood tables that were, I don't know, 500 pounds. And we were running around the room with our hands on these tables. And then there was a meditation during that same session. And I smelled smoke, and I was feeling annoyed that during this sacred time somebody is smoking. And I thought somebody was outside and the smoke was blowing in the window. And finally, when we woke up, I said something. And she said, "No, Susan, nobody is smoking." And she described this person to me who was standing, I'm getting goosebumps, above me, beside me. And it was my father that she described, who was a heavy smoker. And now, on occasion, I smell smoke. And I go, "Hey, Dad."
Yes, yes. I've been in Native American sweat lodges, and there's a smell to a very, very, very hot rock. And I smell that a lot, that smell.
Yeah, I've had, I'd say maybe around 4 or 5 paranormal experiences in my life. And one I left, my dad had died, and I was sleeping in his piano room, you know, for a place to stay. And I was watching Star Trek before I fell asleep, the Wrath of Khan Star Trek, and then I had this weird dream about it's complex, but it was about African, the continent of Africa burning up and warriors killing each other off. And then I woke up. It was freaky. I woke up and then I levitated off the bed in his room, just levitated, and I was like, I looked up at God and was just asking, like, what was that all about? And there's a few others, I won't go into detail. I was mixing medicine. I was like saying affirmations and doing Reiki and stuff like that, and I seen stuff disappear in my apartment, or a hoodie off the ground levitate, and just crazy stuff. But I just thought I'd share that.
Has anyone had anything appear out of nowhere?
Yeah, the other day.
You want to share?
Yeah.
I mean, we're dealing with outside of time and space.
It was really weird. I was in 8th grade in the lunchroom, and my homeroom teacher, I saw her walking out, and there was this really good-looking man walking right behind her. And so later in the day, I saw her, and I was like, "Who was that good-looking guy you were with in the cafeteria?" And she goes, "Could you describe him to me?" And I went ahead and I described exactly what he looked like. She started crying. She goes, "That was my father, and he died 10 years ago."
Oh, that's wonderful. Coming around, Tom.
Oh, there you are.
The one that I can bring to mind is I used to hang out with these Swami, Sajjananda, and Chinmoy, and this yoga came from Canada, and there were Swamis who would just manifest flowers and food and stuff. You know, and I spent most of my life living a psychic life. My memory isn't that great, and so I just have to intuit everything that I do. But I probably have to edit about 9% of what I say, because usually people will just go, "Oh yeah, that's crazy."
Swami Satchidananda was in my seminary with the head of my seminary, and they were both up on this platform speaking with us. And there was a light coming from under his robe, like E.T. It was a light, and they were talking about something, having a great time, laughing, having a ball, and there was that heart light. That's what we were, and it wasn't just me. It was very apparent, but there was nothing there but the light.
He didn't have a flashlight.
No,
so
it was not a
It
flashlight.
was the light of love,
Just remember that.
light of spirit. Jane.
Just before Leon died, a couple of days before, this bird came into our lawn, and I couldn't find it. It's like an invisible bird, but I could hear it, and it was going, Leon, Leon, Leon. And I thought, holy moly, and I kept looking, and I could not find this bird anywhere, but he just wouldn't shut up. This was driving me crazy. I was having enough trouble without this bird. And so what happened is that finally I did find him. Well, the other thing that happened was that my cat, Tipper, he just started crying a couple of days just before Leon died. So that, plus this bird in the yard, going, Leon, Leon, you know, and then after Leon died, and what happened was that I finally, the bird just kept on for months. I mean, he would not leave the yard, and then finally he did, but before he did, he was, well, what happened, I can't exactly remember what happened, but I saw him. Yeah. And he was the sweetest little bird. He was on a branch, you know, and he was just going, Leon, Leon. And his little wings would flutter every time he said Leon. He'd go, Leon, Leon, Leon. And after I saw him, and then I never saw him again.
Far out. This is wonderful stuff. I love this stuff. I love this stuff because we deal at the level that is not physical. Troy.
A number of years ago, in 1980, my brother ended his own life. And he was 4 years younger than I was. We grew up together and were inseparable. We were segregated because the community we lived in, we were too rich to be poor or middle class, but too poor to be rich. Now this sounds strange, but because of that situation, we grew up in a country club environment, and nobody wanted to play with the sons of a Milwaukee tavern keeper. We didn't make the grade. And so we had ourselves, and we just vowed that we're going to get so good, we're going to kick the ass of anybody that we do play. Well, that's the way our life had gone. And we went from golf to rock and roll, and just wherever life took us, we were there together. But one day in 1980, I saw him for the last time. He put his arms around me. He said, I love you, bro. And I never saw him again. Well, now this is where it begins. I'm sorry for the long intro, but just so you understand. At that point in time, now I believe it was a psychic phenomenon, but I can't be sure. But in my dream state, for probably, I'm going to say, a 20-year period, we lived together again in real time, it appeared. He grew older, and we had experiences or shared things or thoughts. And then I think I reached a point where somehow either he felt that he had to leave, or that I was secure enough that I didn't need his presence. I don't know what it was. But that relationship, the dream relationship, just ended. And to be quite honest, I hadn't really given it too much thought. I've kind of taken it out of my consciousness in a certain sense. And tonight there it was, so I thought, well, I only have one that I'll share.
That's fascinating. So you had a whole life in your dreams for years.
For years.
Of seeming real time with your brother who was gone as you both grew old.
Amazing.
So there is so much more going on than we can see or than what most people believe. And when we start opening up to these different inputs, we get more of them, is my experience. The more you trust and act on your intuition, the more aware of your intuition you become. If you're shut down and say, no, that's not real, you know, I can't touch it, I can't feel it yet, then that shutting down shuts us down from stuff that comes to us. So I think that Ernest was onto something when he said, if we're gonna study mind, I wanna study all of it. I wanna know what's happening. I remember my sister Margaret is very psychic and intuitive, and when she found the house that she and John and I lived in Miami right before we moved, she wouldn't look for ads. I'm all, here's the paper, you know, here are the ads, and she was going, no, 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 it's down this street. And sure enough, after she drove around for a little bit, she found a house that had a little handmade sign in the front for rent. And that's where we all lived. But she knew that it wasn't in the paper, and she would say, no, it's not in the paper, it's over this way. And we would kind of zigzag around until we found this. And that was just letting herself be guided. I remember the first real spiritual kind of thing I ever did was when I first moved to Oregon, a bunch of people in the place I was living went into an abandoned house, and we all took candles and we all went in there, and we went in there for the intention of guiding the trapped soul that was in there into the light so they could leave this earth plane and move on into the next dimension. And I was, 27 years old, and for me, this thing was just as normal as could be. It was as if, well, of course, if someone can sense a trapped soul in that abandoned house, we can go sit there and we can chant and sing and visualize them and help them to the light and all of that. Of course we can do that. And so we did that. And it didn't seem a bit odd to me that that's what we were doing. I remember when we were living in Miami, Margaret and I were playing with a Ouija board.
Oh, famous last words.
And we were playing with a Ouija board, and all of a sudden a pretty big cutting board that had been washed and put in the dish drainer. This was before we had dishwashers. You wash everything by hand, and you kind of jam it in the dish drainer so it would sit up, so it would drain and dry on both sides. That, we heard this big crash in the kitchen, and we went in there, and the cutting board had left the drainer, flown across the kitchen, hit things on the counter, and knocked them all on the floor. Wow. And that's when we put the Ouija board away. We decided that that was not something that we wanted to play with. But I remember going by cemeteries and just sending the light and feeling these beings just go in the light. And when we do our treatments for the center daily, it's that we're a beacon of light shining out into these mountains. And for me, I think that maybe we not only attract people in here on that beam of light, which is where you came from, but maybe we gather up some other stuff and shoot it out on that beam of light also. And if we can manipulate spiritual law to create a car or a job or something like that, why can't we use that same creative energy to transform, to bring in more light, to have more love, without it being a spiritual mind treatment, to change people, just to bring in more of an energy that's in alignment with who we are? I think we do that all the time. I think we do it in Ingalls, I think we do it driving down the street, and I think that the more that we are aware that we are dealing in realms that are not seen, the more we are aware of what we do in those realms. And so One of the things that I want you to get from tonight's class is that there's nothing wrong with you. You're not bad or wrong. For that matter, you're absolutely right, Eric. The people that are locked up because they have had spiritual experiences or because they are farther in that realm than they are in this one is huge. And if you could have people just, sometimes just teach people how to close down a little bit and to be able to stay more focused in the density of time and space, I think their lives would be a lot easier than just being wide open. I've known psychic people who say, it's very difficult for me to be in large crowds of people because there's so much input that I'm getting, and it's very helpful for those people to know how to close that down, and the beam of light and the egg, and sometimes you've got to put concrete on the outside of that so that all of that energy doesn't come in, but that's a very easy way to handle that. Judith?
I was a hospice nurse for many years, and it got to the point where I could be with a patient and go 24 hours, and sure enough, 24 hours. And they used to tell us, don't predict, but it wasn't like a prediction. It was a knowing. It was different, and I mean, it never bothered me. It was always like a gift that I would know, and I could give the family that, this is what to expect now. And it was just that kind of, I don't know if it was a channel or whatever, it just kind of, I would bond with these people in their unconscious minds. And it was really amazing.
Sure, because you're dealing with information that is beyond the physical.
Right.
And we're always dealing with information that's beyond the physical, and I encourage you to trust that. If something says, I really should probably leave a little bit early, trust that. If something says, no, I think it's not quite right in my timing. Oh, but you're going to be late. No, it's not quite the right time. Anytime I'm driving down the road and something happens to slow me down, I always am grateful because I'm in my perfect and right place. And I don't want to push it, because when I push it, then I can open myself up to energies that are not where I want to be, moving forward in ease and grace. One time when John and I were driving to Atlanta, there was a very serious accident right in front of us. And from then on, not only do we have an agreement once we get in the car that we travel safely, but that everybody around us is safe. And that doesn't mean I'm controlling and manipulating their experience. It is that if they want to get in an accident, they just need to go somewhere else. Or just wait a couple of minutes till I go by, because in my experience, I don't want to bring that energy in. And you know people who focus on all of that, and they bring it right in, and they bring people in that match that. But we are all psychic. We are all dealing outside of that realm. How many people were at the fire walk last time? We're going to have another fire walk. What is up with that? How is it that in, 2.5 weeks, on January 1st at 4 o'clock, we're going to light a half a cord of cherry wood, and then we're going to rake it out, roll our pants up, and walk across it at 1200 degrees. The same temperature that they melt the aluminum to pour a car engine. How is it that that happens? How do we do that? Twice a year, at least. I mean, isn't that somehow you're outside of time and space? Those of you who have walked, don't you feel like you're, sometimes people feel like they're not touching the coals. They feel like they just went from at the beginning of the fire to the end of the fire, and it happened just like that. Isn't that dealing outside of the realm of time and space? And don't we do that? If I have to wait for time and space to show up for me to create my life, then I'm going to be limited to what shows up in time and space. And the only thing that will show up in time and space is what has already been set in motion to show up in time and space. And I'm not going to get anywhere. I have to realize that there is a part of me that is in this world but not of it. There is a part of me that can transform things. There is a part of me that can do the impossible. There is a part of me that knows what I shouldn't know. And I don't mean that by naughty shouldn't know, that I have no way of knowing. Ernest says that the science of mind gives the solution to every problem and the answer to every question. Well, that's not in the realm of physical form. Usually it's not coming, via text. What we're doing is we're getting some kind of intuitive guidance. We're dealing with a realm of information or energy that is not of the corporal physical form, and we're picking up on that, and then we have the wherewithal to open up to it, to acknowledge it, to get that. And when we do that, then we've got the answers and the solution and the guidance and the direction, and our life goes much more smoothly. Is there anybody who notices the difference between when they listen to that and when they don't listen to that in their world? Yeah, when we don't listen, for me, when I don't listen, I just beat my head against the wall. And when I don't listen, when things don't go the way I thought they were going to go, it gets me really upset. When I listen, I realize that I am so grateful for every closed door. Because every closed door is keeping me from going where I'm not supposed to go. And it's not that there's some outside power saying, Barbara, you shouldn't go there. It's that the intention of my life is going to take me in a general direction. And if I inadvertently start going in a different direction and a door closes, thank you. Thank you for that closed door. Because then I don't have to waste, gosh, in marriages, it could be 10 years. I don't have to waste 10 years going down that road that wasn't my highest and best of love and light and joy road to go. And if I can listen to myself, I have had people in weddings and I've said, really? You picked that person to marry? Did you not notice some of the traits of that person? Did you not get a sense that maybe this wasn't your best match? And they invariably say, I know I wasn't supposed to marry that person, but I thought it was the best I could do. I thought it was the best I could get. Or I was tired of waiting. Or I was lonely. Well, you pay a price. You have an effect for every cause. So when we can learn to open up and listen to that, our lives get easier. Did I tell you about Willard Fuller?
Yes.
Great. Think about that because I have some news for after the break. Let's come back. So I found it very synchronistic, filled with synchronicities. That tonight's lesson was on psychic phenomenon because I want to share something with you that is going on in the center right now, and you're going to hear about it pretty soon. So I always like people who come to class to kind of get the first inside poop of what's happening. And the reason I asked whether I'd shared the story about Willard, and is there anyone who doesn't know who Willard Fuller is? Who wasn't here? Eric, Valerie, Sarah, David, Jane. I'll do it really fast. Back when we were in Fairview in the cornfield, actually back when I was the minister in Miami, at that time it was called Center for Positive Living, we heard about this guy, he was old back then. He was old when I was in my 20s. This old guy, very tall, long white hair, long white beard, ex-Baptist minister that did groups and did this healing thing, and he specialized. He was a healer of the mouth. And his story is that he had rheumatoid arthritis. He went out in the woods and said, either take me or heal me. I'm not leaving till one of the two things happen. But I'm not going to live like this. And he had a whole experience and the light and all of that. And he came out of that with this gift of hands-on healing that, for him, manifested primarily in the mouth. And so you would go to these events, and he was this guy, he looked like he was 7 feet tall, and he would get everybody all riled up in true Baptist fashion, and then he would have everybody line up and would go by him, parade by him, very much like communion in some churches, only he would put his hands on your cheeks. And he said the same thing over and over again. In the name of Jesus, be thou every whit whole. Boom. In the name of Jesus, be thou every whit whole. Over and over and over again. And prior to coming, he would ask people to come with a flashlight and a mirror. And he had some little mirrors that he would pass out and some flashlights because he wanted you to be able to see what was happening in your or someone else's mouth. And during my experiences with Willard, I saw one woman who could put her finger through the hole in her teeth as she stood up on the stage and we watched her teeth close the gap. There was another young woman in her 20s named Jackie who had had the big braces on for years, and she had just left her orthodontist who said, this isn't moving as fast as we had hoped. It's going to be more years that you're going to have these things on. And we stood and we watched the bones in her face move. And the next Sunday she came, she didn't have any braces on. And the orthodontist had said, this is a true miracle that this has changed. And that woman cried for 3 months. You know, just to have had that experience. John has 3 fillings in his mouth that a dentist did not put in his mouth. We saw light coming out of the back of people's mouths as their fillings turned to gold, or as a gold crown appeared as if it was molten and wet and very undefined, and we would see it kind of building up from the inside with this light that was going on, like you were saying, Satchidananda, that this light was coming out of him. And so at that time in Science of Mind, that was really considered something that we don't do. You know, the very snooty people, it's like, oh, we don't do that kind of thing. We don't do hands-on. We don't do healings. Remember, there's nothing to heal, only truth to be revealed. And then last week I shared with you that passage on page 224 in the book we're doing, the original textbook, that says, if a person can get entirely out of the way and let the perfect life come through them, they cannot help but heal people. And that is the highest form of healing. So there was that whole thing about, you shouldn't be doing this. This is really taking this pure teaching and pulling it down. But who can deny the experiences that people had? My son at the time was about 10. And he would push his way up through the crowd to watch the changes, the physical changes on people. And that has affected him to this day, with the belief that people can heal right here and now. That there are circumstances that are not unchangeable, that they can change because he has seen that with his own eyes. So there's a friend of ours that's a minister in LA, his name is Nirvana, and he was telling John about this guy that had been to his center, this guy that worked with Michael Beckwith and in Agape and Roger Teal with the 5,000 person center in Mile High in Denver and all of that, and that strangely enough he had moved to Asheville. And even this guy's booking agent kept calling me and saying, you know, Nirvana keeps telling us to contact you, that we want to bring Rob in and have him do some healing services there. And I was just abrupt, which those of you who know me, I can be, in my statement of, do you have any idea how many of these calls I get of people wanting to come to my center and hawk their wares to my people in my building on my time and basically on my dime. And this guy lives in Asheville and he has never bothered to come over here and say hello. He has never bothered to come to one of our Sunday celebrations, but he wants to come in and sell his thing to my people. This is not going to happen. I said it would do him a world of good, in my view, to come here on a Sunday. And so the very next Sunday, he showed up. John and I don't even remember him being here. So nondescript, so pulled in energy. Instead of what we're used to, are people coming and saying, I am the new Messiah, I am the new king, you know, and all of you people should bow down to us, to me, and with an ego a million miles wide. You don't see those people because I don't let them, I don't let them do their thing here, because anybody who's got an ego that big is not the real deal. They're not. They're just in there for a look at me kind of thing. So Nirvana talked to John. This was when John was traveling a lot, and said, you really need to meet this guy. And so John invited him over to our house, since I had banned him, you know, from here. Invited him over to the house, and they sat and they chatted for a while. And this man has the gift of healing. And he has quite the story of beings and guides and attempted suicide and a revelation and a shift of energy. I mean, Ruth Montgomery might call him a walk-in. I don't know. I don't know what happened, but I know that he has something that happens to him. And so he worked on John, and he doesn't take a long time to do his work, but my husband fell in love. He fell in love with this guy. He just fell in love with him. So he invites Rob and his wife Sarah over for dinner, which is something that we don't do. You know, we don't have company over for dinner. It's very complicated. You gotta clean, you gotta shop, you gotta cook, you know, you gotta do all of that stuff to have company come over. So I'm still not sold on this guy, period. And John says, oh, I invited him over for dinner. I'm going, great. My last meeting gets me out of here at 6 or 6:15, and you've got dinner at 6:30, my contribution will be walking from my office over to our living room for this event that you have put together. Right. Like, you're not expecting, you're not getting anything from it. And so he, you know, during dinner, he really shared these amazing stories about being on the beach in LA and being very suicidal and having beings appear to them. I wanted to have the buy-in from the room of our own psychic experiences, so nobody just said, oh, you're crazy. So there are beings that appear, there are verbal communications that happen. Sometimes you'll see him kind of chatting with someone that we are not seeing, kind of thing. And then he did his thing on us. And he did his thing on John, and John just goes into this bliss, this absolute bliss. And Rob is very clear that this is not him. This is not him. He is acting as a conduit from spirit to us. And I think rather than acting as an amplifier, he's acting as a, is it called a condenser?
Magnifier.
No, the opposite.
Conductor.
A step-down transformer,
Yeah.
to take this amazing energy and bring it into the person that he is working on in a way that doesn't, you know, blow them out, like Eric was saying, and put them in what is it, Copestone over at St. Joe's. I visited many person over there. They're really not crazy, they just had a bad day.
I just cleaned their room.
So he did John, he did me, and I was distracted because we're having company, and there are dishes to be done, and a bunch of stuff, and it was all very nice. And then we had a trial run, a target group of people from our center, because this Center for Spiritual Living's highest purpose is to have people's lives get better, to bring people together in such a way that we realize that our physical limitations do not limit us on a spiritual level, and that once we break through that, anything is possible. And I frankly don't care if it's a spiritual mind treatment, if it's a class, if it's sitting with a yogi, or if it's someone's healing energy. I don't care how that happens, as long as the people are lifted up and have real change. So we took a select group of people that we felt were a good cross-reference for the community and brought them over, and Rob worked on 10 people over the course of an hour and a half. And by the time it was over, one person was sliding off the couch. They were such mush, and they just kept giggling while they kind of slid off the couch. And other people, one woman came in with knee braces and walked out without them. Now, it's not as vivid as Willard's, in that you don't really point to it and say, oh my God, I'm watching this happen. But what happened for me was I woke up the next morning and realized that the decades-old shoulder that I had had locked up, that sets a series of vertebrae experiences in motion, which is to every so often I'll take someone and go, here, feel my skull. Look how weird I am. I have overgrown skull bones, you know, that's my weirdness. But the shoulder was completely opened up. Completely opened up, and I woke up the next morning and I realized I was not in pain anymore. I didn't have a hot stabbing knife in my back. I didn't have headaches. I didn't have that sense that there was something just seized up in me. It's almost like there's air in my back where my shoulder goes. And that's probably the way it's supposed to be. But there were different things like that. And then because we're feeling better and better about Rob, we brought him in to meet with the practitioners and David on Saturday morning. And everybody had an experience of him. He just touches people. He just goes, you know, walk around behind you and he'll just touch you. And people will start to laugh, or they'll start to have an experience. It's a very different thing. And what I want you to know is that since our last class, our board has agreed to be in partnership with him and to have a weekly, he doesn't want to call it healing because he says healing is too limited, transformation services in the sanctuary on Wednesdays. And David has been very gracious in asking the band to move their practice to Thursday. And usually when Rob goes to a different city, when he was in LA, there were 1,800 people that showed up for this. So when he goes to a different city, he flies in, people come and they have the experience and he comes home. So we want to have that offered weekly to our people and to the people in Asheville. And I have these ideas, you know, I've got this belief that if you're not dead, you can be healed. And whether it's a spiritual mind treatment, whether it's a group agreement, whether it's going to John of God, whether it's coming here and having this experience, he says it doesn't matter whether he touches you or not. If you are in the room, you are experiencing that connection to spirit that, he says, changes every cell in your body, changes your DNA. It brings you back to your natural state of health and wholeness, the same that you were when you were a baby. You have that health that is inherent in your body. So it's very similar to science of mind for someone who hasn't studied science of mind, but truth is truth is truth. And so we want to do this.
When are we going to start?
the first Wednesday in January. We're actually going to bring him up on stage on the first Sunday in January and let him give a demonstration, not for the person that he's touching, but for everyone in the room, because it's palpable. You can feel it. It's as if this love starts pouring in, and people start to laugh, people start to see light, and they have an experience. So we wanted to give everybody a little bit of a sample of that, and then have the Wednesday nights start. So there'll be the fire walk on the first. The first Sunday will be what?
Third.
The third, and then we'll start third, fourth, fifth, sixth on the 6th with Rob here. I want to see people come in wheelchairs and walk out. You know, I want to see people throw down their crutches. I want to see people who have broken hearts, have them just let that energy go and have transformation happen. And it's not going to change classes and Sundays and things like that, other than there will be a lot more people that are feeling better about themselves, either physically or emotionally. And I wanted to let you know that that's happening because the word is out, and I feel like you are more first come for information since you're in classes, and that I want to let you know what's happening. And I also wanted your feedback as to that, as to what that might bring up for you, Judith, and then Betty.
I have a question. When he works or whatever, does the person tell him what's going on, or does he just?
He says they move his hands.
Okay.
And
so
then
you don't
tries,
say, "Oh, I have this back problem."
No.
Okay, I didn't think so.
He says there's so much time wasted in the story. He
Yeah.
said every cell is healed.
Okay.
Every cell is healed. Yeah. So he tries not to think about it, because he says when he thinks about what's happening, he gets in the way. And sometimes he'll just talk about these ridiculously normal things while he's working on something. And he makes jokes, things like that, because when he starts to think about what he's doing, he gets in the way. Just like Ernest said, if someone can get entirely out of the way and let the divine life flow through them, they cannot help but heal.
For me, I can't wait for this. This is fabulous. I mean, thank you for offering this. And he's come to here, and that you're open to bringing him here.
He said he moved here from Colorado to be at this center,
Wow.
which just took a year. And he needed some time to hide. And I can understand that, because after a few months, he won't be able to go to Earth Fair or Whole Foods without someone saying, "Hey, can you put your hands on me?"
Well, maybe we shouldn't be taping this.
Oh, no, it's fine. And
I
his
know.
name is Rob Wergin, W-E-R-G-I-N. You can look him up online, and he's just a very sweet and gentle man. Betty first.
I'm questioning whether people that he's healed or helped ever themselves learn to do this type of, because I've had this feeling in the back of my mind that this is the type of stuff that I'm supposed to do.
Good. Well, being around it can only help. Yes.
Because, I do Reiki and stuff, and but I really feel that this is, it just feels like this is where I'm supposed to learn.
Well, you learn a lot because he talks, explains and says, "This isn't me, but I'm connecting with the divine, and it's moving through me into your body." So you get a sense of what's going on with that. Troy.
Just before we left Wisconsin, Betty and I were just introduced to a healer that was a post-World War II Germany, Bruno Gehrig.
Oh,
And the healings that were documented were phenomenal. And it created a cult where people not only actually started almost to worship his memory on the level of a saint or what have you.
if you took a picture of him and put it in your shoe, it would fix everything.
Yeah, but anyway, it sounds very much like this, where every so often it seems that there is one of us that's walking the planet, doing this kind of things.
One thing about Rob is he is very humble, he is very gentle, he's a gentle soul, and he is very loving, so there's no ego involvement to get in the way. And so I guess it would be our job not to let him be deified. And very much his desire, he doesn't want to be deified.
Yeah, well, he says, you know, it is not I, but it's he that is, the power goes through me as a conduit.
Right, right. Wonderful. Roxanne.
This all sounds wonderful. So this isn't critical, but it still takes me back to the discussions we've had about Ernest Holmes and the teachings that all of our healing is from within us, that a healer doesn't heal us.
Right.
So how is this different?
What my experience is that when I'm in that presence, I am flooded with love. Just flooded with love. And that the way I would wrap my head around it is that love brings my body back to where it's supposed to be. And that every time I hold into anger or resentment or judgment and I put it down in my body, it constricts it. And for me, that's where disease comes from, are those limited ideas, limited beliefs, limited energies that keep my body from being the way it's supposed to be. And for some reason, around him, there is such love that moves into the space that honest to God, I've never experienced anything like that. I've never experienced a drug like that, and I really tried and looked. But I think people do that because they're searching for something that they know there's a higher meaning in life, there's a higher experience in life. And so they go and they look for it, they just don't find it. So I don't think that it's that the healing is coming from without, but I do think that when we're around certain people, the vibrations can lift us. It's the same thing as you come in this center. The vibration lifts us. And I'm fascinated with the idea of what could happen with a bigger lift. Who had their hand up? Joe.
How is it similar to practitioner work?
It is similar to practitioner work because when a practitioner is doing a spiritual mind treatment, they are opening up to that awareness of the presence of spirit right here and right now. And that's why people can leave a practitioner session and they're giddy. They're open. They're filled with love.
A practitioner in my brief experience, can help me hold a knowing. I guess I'm wondering if, I'm just speculating, at a group healing, you know, we're all creating our own environments, we're all creating our own worlds, but maybe a healer, just like a practitioner, can help us in that presence be more of ourselves.
Right.
We might be on our own.
And for me, it's not an intellectual process at all. It is a purely experiential. And the experience is great. It's not, you're going to have a little bit of an experience. For me, it was a big experience.
Can I speak to my experience
Sure.
just a little bit? So I was with the practitioner group on Saturday, privileged to be there. And I would say that my experience specifically was exactly what you described, which was being with Rob and letting him work with me provided a quality of spiritual presence that I couldn't quite get to myself. And then it's up to me to maintain it when I get back home. But it was like I want to do drugs. You know, it's a boost. It's a boost. And then it's up to me, you know, to, okay, stay on my disciplines. Okay, and sometimes it's hard to kind of climb out or make that last little energy surge over the top when I feel like I'm growing and I'm about to expand and I just can't quite get past the habit or whatever it is. And somebody comes along and just gives you a little, okay, great. Okay, now, I can maintain that. So it's very similar in that respect. It's the same process.
Can I ask you a question? Have you felt that you've been able to maintain it since?
I made it a point to.
I would say, have you maintained that feeling?
I mean, the point.
Valerie and then B.
Because you and John travel and you're meeting with many people in your same loop, are you seeing just a rapid increase of these people during this time that's
No.
surpassing? Nothing.
No.
This is just normal.
No, this is not normal. This is very different. And I feel like the 20 years of work that we have done here, all of our Native American work that we have done here, all the way to the statement in our daily treatment that we are who we have come here to be, has put us in divine appointment with him. He said he's been looking for us for 12 years, that he just didn't know where we were. And he was guided to move from Boulder, where he thought he was going to spend the rest of his life, to Asheville, North Carolina. They bought a house sight unseen. And he moved here because he follows his guidance. He follows his intuition. And I feel like there is and I'm just going to own this myself, because everything is a reflection of me and everything is a reflection of you. But I remember when I went to be with Edwene last March, and I was really looking at, am I going to just slide into retirement? And you know, this center doesn't even have to grow. It's so stable and everything's going so well. We can even shrink and it'd be fine. And John's traveling all the time anyway, so am I gonna just slide into retirement? Or am I going to really do what is mine to do and be who I am meant to be and really kick it? Kick it for the rest of my time in this that I love so much. And I came back not knowing how it was going to happen, but the one thing that I had a hold of was every debt is lack of forgiveness. Well, if we have all of this debt, then we have all of this lack of forgiveness, then the first step seems to be to really work on our forgiveness. And so we gathered up all the practitioners and had them agree or asked them to agree to do forgiveness work every day, every day, every day as we release the debt as the outward demonstration for the inner work that we're doing. And it was then that things started really shifting. B, you said you felt a shift and you came back to the center because of that. So when someone shows up and says, I've been guided to be here, I'm supposed to be working here, this is a divine appointment and I feel the same way, I want to go with it. I don't know what that means or how that's going to be, but I want to go with it because I want to have an impact on Asheville. I want to have an impact on North Carolina. I want to have an impact on the Southeast. I want to have an impact on the world. Those of you who have done visioning, I think the last question in the visioning is something about what is your end-all, be-all of all of this, and I remember somebody did the process for the board, and mine was, I want to change the world. I want to change the whole world. I'm not here for little stuff. In my heart of hearts, I want to change the whole world. I want to elevate the consciousness of humanity so that we can take an alternate path where we're not blowing each other up and hurting each other and being crazy like that. I want us all to remember who we are, that we are spiritual beings, that love is the only reality and the most powerful force on the planet. I want us to do that, so if something drops itself in my lap and looks really a lot like this is the next step, I want to take that step. B.
I'm going to take my question back and not ask it because I don't know how to put it. It was a question coming from my little self, and I feel that it's irrelevant.
Well, but it's okay to ask those questions. Are you going to give the center over to this new healer? Are you going to give all your power away? Are we going to stop doing science of mind? What the heck is going on here? That kind of a question?
It was not really a yes.
Because we've asked that question.
Yeah, if this is going to be opened up to the public, there is going to be a change.
There will be more people interested in what we do here. Yes.
But we are open to the public.
We are open to the public. And some of that may be positive and some may be negative. You know, it's not uncommon that we get a message from someone sharing with me how I'm taking you all to hell. And that they are praying for our souls. And I go, okay, prayer's good. You know?
Yes, my girl.
I saw the psychic world. I saw a burning cross on the grass out in Fairview dozens of times in the middle of the night. I mean, I would go out there and see, had they set the place on fire. There was so much negative energy toward us out there. Not so much here. So if that comes at us, then just like the news report, it's a prayer request. It's a request for us to rise in consciousness and to send love.
So actually you're asking, not you're asking, we're asking of ourselves a huge leap.
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what you're asking. I think my question was coming out of, as I was saying, the little me, the fear of how it's going to change. But what you talked about in between when I put my hand up and down, you're asking for a big leap from all of us.
I think that we're going to have a big leap. I think that, and the question is, are we ready? Are we solid enough in who we are? Are we clear enough to stay out of judgment and to take the high road and to stay in love? To be able to have maybe thousands of people have a shift in their lives. I cannot see how I can say no to that.
Isn't that what we all want?
That's what I want. But, you know, a lot of us want it without any ripples. We don't want to be inconvenienced. We don't want to have a trouble finding a parking space or something like that.
We might have to enlarge our parking lot,
Judith.
When we were talking about the public coming in, so to speak, what struck me was the last firewall, we had a plethora of
A
bombs.
plethora is a bad thing.
Oh, it is?
Yes, a plethora is too much of a bad thing.
Oh, I take it back.
Yes. I've been heard it
misspoke.
used incorrectly on NPR.
Okay, anyway, we had scads of people. I mean, every chair was full, and you know, it was like, and I walked in, I was like, you know, what is this?
And that was the firewalk we had in the downpour.
Pour, exactly.
So is there resistance to transformation? Sure. And do we need to be clear enough that we can light that fire and keep it burning all the way to coals in a deluge that never stopped?
Amazing, yeah.
Yes.
So all I'm saying is that, you know, if you attract it, it will come, and it will be what it is.
And it's a good thing to realize that we're standing on the precipice. You know, we are, and we'll either fall and crash or we'll fly. Or there'll be those glass pillars that will come up and hold us. Well, something's going to happen, but you know, I'd rather fall flat on my face and lose it all than look back on my life and say, why, I wish I had tried. Because I absolutely believe that anyone can be healed of anything. Anyone can return to their natural state. I believe the power of the presence of spirit is so strong that it can transform anyone's lives. And anything that I've got that will boost that will, what's the word? When you use your money and you leverage it, that will leverage that energy. I want to use that. If that's, come on Monday night, I will sing and dance for you, I will entertain you, we will have a good time, and you will hardly notice that you've totally changed. Or come on Sunday and we'll make it comfy and we'll give you coffee and bread and fruit and snacks and all that stuff and great music and wonderful experience so that you will get how great you are. I'll do anything to have that happen. I'm going to go with Michaela because she had her hand up first, and then Sue, and then Tom.
You're missing the corner.
Oh, and Eva.
I think you would dine for us.
I think I would what?
Would you dine for us?
Dine?
Yeah, make a dining room.
That's what this is. We dine all the
I
time.
think she's talking about Ernest. type with the.
Oh, dining with his wife with.
Yeah, the linens.
Okay, who was next? Sue?
So you asked for feedback or whatever before. So my feedback is I would never say no to, I'm open-minded about, seeing this person. I would not ever say no. I don't know anything about him. Of course, when David came home, I went ahead and looked him up because that's what I do. He seems, there's a YouTube of him treating someone, and he seems like a very, like you said, humble, sweet, maybe low energy in personality, person, nothing threatening or nothing that looks like you would want to take over. But in general, when something comes up and it seems like something big is coming into my life and I go to fear, I have to look at how comfortable I've been in life just being the way it is.
Right.
And I have to look at myself, and I could go and say, no, I'm not open to this. So the effect will be, I'll just keep on going and there won't be a change. And I will look back, I know I will look back and say, why didn't I try that when I was, this age or that age?
Right.
So I'm totally open to, And, with that chapter with Ernest Holmes, he didn't deify any of those psychics.
Right.
He said we all have that
Right.
within us. There are some people that for whatever reason have a higher awareness or more of an awareness. Doesn't mean they're better, they just happen to have that gift.
So wouldn't it be amazing if through this idea of spiritual quickening, which has been talked about for millennia, if there's something that opens up inside of us, and then we take that out, and it touches someone else, and it opens up inside of them, and we talk about all that. We talk about that all the time. So what kind of transformation is about to catch fire? And if you've ever been with a wood fire that got out of control, it can happen very, very quickly. Thank you. Who is next? Tom and then Eva.
Yeah. Well, it's been my experience that nothing bad ever comes from a very high vibration, a healing vibration, or an intense love vibration. And the longer you stay in it, the more likely it is that you will maintain, and you will maintain your own health and happiness and whatever. You only get in trouble if you're like trying to change time, or if you're spying on the Russian psychic. But this, go for it.
I just want to backtrack about people that are calling you and telling you that you're sending us to hell, and I was kind of chuckling to myself and thinking, well, if this is hell and we're going to hell, I really have no desire to find heaven.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I used to tell John's mom that. You're going to hell. We'd go over there and she would just start sobbing. What's wrong, Mom? You're going to hell. No, that's okay with us.
Sherry. Spiritual quickening, that's exactly what it feels like. So it's when
go ahead, Tom.
When Rob first speaks, it just happens instantly. There's just this sensation, it's like this surge of energy, this presence of love, this light, this sort of just takes over. And just turn to mush, just the circulation that you feel. And if that's what anybody can experience, it seems that that's something that would be the highest expression, not necessarily the highest expression, but one that we may have experienced in our own lifetime, to have that. It's so rare. So I'm all for it. What it's going to look like, I don't know, but I do feel that in this area, with all these crystals around and this energy and this supposed vortex that we're in, this is the perfect and right place. The center is the perfect and right time, and we're the perfect and right people for having this experience. So I welcome it.
Thank you. Thank you. So we have just a few more minutes. Does anybody else have anything they want to say? You look like you do, Troy.
I do. We're all here. We've all come from all over the country, all different. We've gone through hardships. We've assembled here And this, tonight, perhaps we just got a glimpse of what the hell we're doing here.
Yeah. And then while we have the creek, the Native Americans say that where the water meets the land is the place of healing.
Wonderful, thank you, thank you. Yes, Michaela?
You know when some people are cuckoo up here, I may be one of them, but some people will need mental healing. Is that possible with him?
Sure, every cell. And that's only in the physical realm. Like Sherry was saying, there's such a feeling, and David was saying there's such a feeling of expansion that goes with that. And so I don't know what it means, but I wanted you to know, I don't want you to hear things through the rumor mill. And I do believe that people who are here in my class get pretty much first dibs on any information that's ready to be shared. The board overwhelmingly agreed to this. It's very different for us. This is going to be a ticketed event.
Oh.
And the tickets are $20, which for me is a very reasonable price for someone to come into this experience. And that's a big shift in our culture. Having someone who's different than us, he's not, you know, he's not a member, he's not a practitioner, he's not a minister, then he'll be running the Wednesday night things. John and I would like to be here every week and welcome everyone and introduce him, but then it's his baby. Practitioners, after having experienced him, want to be in the room to, Rocking Bear would have said, to spin the energy. I think the people with John of God, their job is to, they actually amplify it. But I think if we're just, you know, like major high watch going on Sunday mornings, you've got two people doing high watch and they're just balancing the energy, balancing the energy. So if something comes up, it's just balanced in the light and all is well. So the practitioners want to participate in that way. And we don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know if January 6th there are going to be 3 people or there are going to be 300 people. We don't know. But I think that after having had that experience, if I know anybody that would do well with having that kind of a connection, I would want to bring them here. So it's possible that after a couple of months, it's going to be a lot more people than we have in the beginning. I don't know what's going to happen. I know something's happening. Susan.
Could you go over those dates? And will the Wednesday class, what I'm hearing is it will be an ongoing class?
It's going to be every Wednesday in the sanctuary.
And starting January 6th? Is
yes, the first Wednesday in January. So the fire walk is January 1st. Then, pardon me?
January 3rd?
First, January 1st. January 1st. I think it's a Thursday or Friday, I don't know which. January 1st is the fire walk. Then the first Sunday, the 3rd, we'll have Rob and we'll bring him up on stage and just let people get a little sense of him. And then we'll invite everyone to come on Wednesday the 6th.
Okay.
Judith.
You mentioned tickets would be 20. Is that for the classes, or is that for the which is that for?
There are no classes. This will be a.
No, I don't mean the classes.
It's $20 at the door to get in.
Into the.
Yeah. Yes. Which is different for us.
Is that when? Is that each time he?
Yes, each week.
Okay, that's
each
what
week,
I was confused about.
$20 at the door to get in.
Okay, thank you.
Becca.
Would it be possible to get tickets before?
There are no tickets. It's $20 at the door.
$20 at the door.
Whoever's there are perfectly right people to be there.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Who else? Anybody?
What are the hours? You don't know yet?
Well, we're going to start it at 7 because we start everything at 7. I've always seen him go long. You know, and if you need to leave, you just get up and leave. But most people are happy to stay.
The first is on a Thursday.
Okay, the first is on a Thursday.
Are you planning to advertise this?
The first is on a Friday.
Pardon me?
How will people know that aren't already within here, how will people know to come? Will there be advertising?
I'm sure there'll be some advertising. Most of it will be to our people. Most of it will be on our email news. It'll be through Sunday morning, and my guess is after that, it's gonna be word of mouth and it's gonna go pretty fast. I mean, if you have someone who's dealing with something, wouldn't you wanna bring them to this? And if you have someone who's just cranky, wouldn't you want to bring them to this?
I know just the person.
I think I'll bring myself.
So I wanted to let you know, I wanted your feedback. I want to make sure that as much as possible, we're in this together. My sense is that, like Bea said, we're moving into a greater level of love and light. And we are being more of a beacon in these mountains than we've ever been before. You know, when we were out in Fairview, people who wanted to find us couldn't find us. And then we moved into Asheville, and now we're stepping out again. So I wanted to make sure that you were brought in on all of this, and you knew what was going on, and had a sense of what's happening, but really you won't have any sense of it until it happens. You know, that's just the nature of that. Sherry.
And to be clear, it's not that every single person who comes in will be on the platform.
Right.
No, if there are 300 people in the room, 6 people get work done. But really, everybody in the room gets work done. And if there are 10 people in the room, 6 people get work done. But really, everybody in the room gets work done. And so it brings up a little of your ego. Well, I wanted him to pick me, you know. No, it's in the room.
Does he go through that and pick who he's gonna work with?
I don't think he picks them. I think
guides.
that they are picked.
How are they picked?
The guides.
I think he's told who to call on. But I don't know, I'm not him. You know, he says he doesn't move people. He was working with someone who had broken their back in 5 places and hadn't been able to bend for years in Denver, and didn't know the story, doesn't want to know the story. Came behind them, and just all of a sudden he was throwing back and forth. And people were freaking out, like, oh no, you don't know. And all of a sudden the woman started to laugh because she could be thrown back and forth. You know, another person in LA at Michael Beckwith's Center in Agape had 4 weeks left to live with terminal cancer. And he saw her like, you know, months later, and she said, oh, by the way, I don't have cancer anymore. He said, I never knew you had cancer. So those kinds of things happen. Pardon me? She didn't. So those kinds of things happen. But I just wanted to bring you in. I love you very much. We're going to close the class out. Take out what you're going to get. Hold it in your hand. There's a song, there's a healing going on that just keeps running through my head. And I'm grateful to be a part of it. I am grateful to be a part of a center that lifts people to the best of them, that sees God in everyone's eyes. A center whose community is clear enough and open enough and strong enough to be able to welcome the masses in. I'm grateful for all of the guidance that is given us as to what the next step is. I am divinely guided, directed, uplifted, and inspired, and all is well. So I know that this gift tonight is blessed, that we are blessed, this center is blessed, and all that happens here is a blessing to the world, and I am deeply grateful. And so it is.
So it is.
We simply embrace the light. We feel the love. We know that all is well. That we are spiritual beings living in a spiritual world. It is governed by spiritual law, and all is well. We are beings of light, and we are beings of love. So I know that everything in these baskets is blessed, that each of us all that we are came with our gift, filling up this room from the floor to the ceiling and all between the walls. This air is rich and blessed with God as us, and as Spirit moves in our lives, it touches us, it blesses us, it heals us, it quickens and awakens us. And because we cannot keep it locked up in this room, out it goes to cover this planet, to touch, to bless, to heal, to quicken, and to awaken every being, to remember who we are, to be who we have come here to be. I know that that energy is always here and always now, touching every one of us here tonight, everyone who has ever been here, and everyone yet to come. And so it is. I love you. Come on Sunday. I'm going to be great.